This episode is dedicated to the memory of Bill Treacher.
Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 7th to Thursday the 10th of November 2022. Hope you're all well. I trust that you all are. My name is Alex and I cannot do this podcast alone. I must invite my friend Rob on. Hello Rob, how are you?
Hello, Alexander. Very well this week. Thank you. How are you? Hello, dear listeners and viewers. So hopefully, and I know, cursing it and everything, touch wood. Touch your head, Alex. It's the most wooden thing in the world. Touch your head. That's it, knock, knock. We should all be fine and dandy for video this week, which means that this calendar reveal that we've been waiting on my desk to be revealed since last week, the first month of this 12-month year, where I have never known who was going to be next, but I did know this month. So you, dear listeners, are the only ones that don't know, because the listeners, this is their favourite part. The people who can't see this, it's absolutely works for them. It's the best bit of the month. So we were in October. Say goodbye to Dot and Nick, and say hello to Dot and Ethel, ladies and gentlemen. This was worth waiting for, wasn't it? Dot and Ethel. Now this must have been at the during the euthanasia episode, wasn't it? The big old grand exit.
It certainly was. Yep. Just the moment when Ethel asked Dot to kill her, she asked also for a photograph to be taken by Pauline. So, yes. it was a very important time for everyone.
Help me, Dot, and make sure the light's right. There you go. So there we
Use the ring light. So as Rob quite rightly said, for anyone listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of your favourite podcast apps, although we tried to describe the photo, it's not as good as if you watch us on YouTube.
Oh, that's a new one. That's a new one. The whole clip's fallen off the wall this time. That's never happened before.
Rob's clip's fallen off the wall. So, and also you'll get to see Rob trying to put it back on the wall, which is normally a struggle in itself. It's So yeah, I mean, only one more month to go, and then we don't have to worry about Rob breaking the calendar one last time. While Rob is putting that up, as we dedicated the show,
I'll get that sorted. I'll get that sorted for next week.
We are dedicating the show this week to Bill Treacher, who sadly died on Saturday. I just thought I'd share a little story that but basically when we first started the podcast, because Rob and I obviously been doing the podcast for a couple of years, but before Rob there was Ben, and Ben and I, when we were first starting off doing the podcast, when we first started off doing the podcast, we were getting interviews with people, and we got one Punk Mary and a few others, and one of the people we asked to get an interview with was Bill Treacher, and we got in touch with his son, and we were that close to getting an interview, but unfortunately technology defeated us because Bill didn't feel very confident doing it over a technology.
Frankly, the way our technology goes, who can blame him?
But I was always excited to see Arthur on screen, as I've documented many a times. He is my absolute favourite character on EastEnders of all time. If there was a tier list, he would be above S tier. He was my favourite character.
What was it about? Because yes, I've heard you say this many a time, but I've never actually full on asked you. What was it that made Arthur Fowler, modest old Arthur Fowler, your favourite character of all time? What was it?
He was just so real. He was an everyman. He tried his hardest to look after his family. He lost his job, and he just went through pillar to post to try to make sure his family were happy. He had to pay for Michelle's wedding. That's when he stole the Christmas money, ended up having the breakdown, going to prison. There's a wonderful scene when he's being interrogated by the police, a really good scene where you can see him lying and his lies are unraveling, and you just see his emotion as he's going through the rigor, and it's just everything about him was just perfect. I just loved his character so much.
I did not realise, because when I was watching sort of news interviews and stuff this week about it, I didn't realise that episode where he has the nervous breakdown and throws the Christmas tree across the room, I didn't realise that was the same episode as the Den and Angie divorce thing. I didn't know that, which is apparently according to the news. The news said this, all right? Don't blame me if it's wrong. The news said this, that it's... I didn't realise that was the same episode. Is it? I figured you'd know more than...
I thought it was the episode when Pauline kind of figured out that Vicky was Dirty Den's child with Michelle. She sat on the other side of the bar, and it cut to her finding out, and then cut to him. But then I could be wrong. I mean, it was a while. It was about 3 years ago when we rewatched the episode.
Someone will know out there. But
get in touch with us. Comment below.
According to BBC News, the episode where Arthur has his nervous breakdown and throws the Christmas tree against the wall, that was the same episode as the Den and Angie
it probably
things,
is.
which was EastEnders' biggest ever viewing rating, like 1,700 million or whatever it was. So do let us know if we're wrong or right about that. But yes, there we go then.
If there's anyone's going to know, the BB's going to know. But yes, I was very sad to get the news. When you text me, that's when I kind of discovered at the same time as well, because Rob was like, right, sad news, let Alex know. And I was there in my little big van.
Of bad news. That's my role in life.
Stopped, pulled over, had a looked at the news. It was very sad. Yeah, so I am sad to hear that news, and obviously our thoughts and our well wishes go out to all of the family. Yeah, very, very sad news. But we have a week of EastEnders. We move on and we go on to current EastEnders, which we'll now talk about next. We're starting with Lola's story then. She came out of hospital this week, and Ben has been doing a little bit of Googling online and finding solutions to perhaps cures or, sourcing other ways and treatments where Lola could perhaps still be saved from her cancer. It's clutching at straws. The sad thing is that Lola kind of realized that perhaps she wasn't going to survive, so she wanted to live the life that she had left. And Ben giving her the false hope, similar to what Jay last week had given her, seems to kind of Lola's trying to jumping on board and kind of getting along with it. And I think this is a worrying time for her to kind of like decide that perhaps Googling symptoms online isn't necessarily the right way of trying to find the solution to this kind of problem.
Sort of deciding that she's going to be the miracle case that kind of stuns doctors and statisticians everywhere, bless her. Although, having said that, I do feel that there is something in Lola at the moment that you can sort of feel that she also deep down knows that the end is coming for her, I think. There's a sort of sadness there in the background, no matter how much sort of optimism she decides to throw at us, and Jay mainly. I think she still feels that something is on the horizon for her. And she hasn't told Lexi about what's going on. So that's kind of like her next kind of big step and a big milestone in this, to try and explain to, I don't know how old Lexi is, like 7 or 8 or something. Like, how do you explain that to a kid of that age? Like, it's impossible. It wasn't a huge part of the week this week. She came home and she's got sort of like a bandana on her head to kind of cover the scar at where the operation took place. What are you laughing at?
Which is because whenever they do like a cancer storyline, it's like they always put a scarf over their head so they don't have to kind of shave their hair. I know that prosthetics and makeup is a lot more realistic nowadays, but obviously in this case, the actress probably thought, no, I'll just put a scarf around my head. It just always reminds me of Steph from Neighbours. This is a throwback, when Steph got cancer and she just had, for like a year, she just wore a hat all the time, and the hats just got more elaborate because obviously the actress didn't want to cut her hair down.
I can see that kind of being. I thought that was quite in character for Lola, though. I feel like that's the sort of thing she would do, like immediately cover it up, because she wants to go. Because one of her main worries about losing her hair wasn't the fact that, oh my god, I've got a brain tumor, oh my god, I'm going to die. It's like, I work as a hairdresser. How am I supposed to? How can I do this job without So I think that kind of worked. That worked quite well for her, I thought.
Was she covering up also because not everyone, only her immediate circle know about this. Not everyone does, do they? Because there was that scene between Sharon and Linda in the gardens when they were being a bit talking about the dating and so on and so forth, and but they both didn't seem to, they knew that Lola had come out of hospital, but they didn't seem to know exactly the reasons why.
Yeah, because Linda and Sharon were sort of in the, before they keep her in longer. Anyway, I've got this really fit guy for you to meet. I think that both of them would have been a little bit more caring, especially Sharon. So I don't think. But the only person that I think knows at the moment outside the immediate circle is Rocky, because Jay told Rocky a couple of weeks ago. So whether that might sort of, and Jay made Rocky promise that he wasn't even going to tell Kathy. And it feels unlike, because Kathy does know, because she's living with Ben. So Kathy knows and Rocky knows. So outside of that, I don't think a huge amount of the square knows at this point. So obviously news will spread at some point, depending on how Lola sort of adjusts to life outside of the hospital. She got to keep going back to hospital, in and out. I think the doctor said to her last week. So we'll kind of see how it goes. At the moment, I think the story at the moment is sort of just her sort of kind of adjusting to it all and sort of trying to live her life normally and sort of hoping for some chink in the darkness of what's to come. Bless her. It's all very sad.
Were you surprised But it's very sad. Were you surprised that the more wasn't made of it though this week? Considering it kind of was, it wasn't the main story last week either, but there was more. And you think that perhaps there might have been more explored this week, or do you think there just wasn't time because it was just so dense with Panesars this week?
Yeah, I mean,
they
maybe
just
it
thought that
was.
perhaps.
Yeah, it was quite Panesar heavy this week. So it could. I mean, the thing is, like, where do you go from here at the moment? Because really, at the moment, the only detail that we don't really know about this is essentially how long Lola has got left, and the doctors essentially left her on a cliffhanger, didn't they? Which I didn't think was very fair. Like, we'll let you know how long you've got left. All right, we don't know at the moment. Let's find that out as tests go on. So I think basically until she knows that, the story is sort of as it is at the moment, and it's just sort of Lola sort of hoping, and everyone around sort of going, "It's going to be fine," when everyone's sort of like, "I don't think it's going to be fine." So we'll just have to wait and see. But it's all very sad, and I'm fully prepared for this to make my eyes wet because it seems like it's got all the ingredients for that, hasn't it? It's going to be very sad.
Yes, very, very sad story. So we've alluded to Linda and Sharon's story, and let's talk about that next. So Linda was meant to have a date this week, but unfortunately her date didn't turn up. Alfie was able to take his place. I think actually it was Alfie who kind of saw him, thought he was not good enough for Linda, and then told him to sling his hook. So yeah,
I don't think that isn't quite what happened. Alfie, like, this guy just didn't turn up, and I think Alfie was sort of trying to save Linda's face a little bit, and just sort of say, "Oh no, that's what happened." Yeah, no, he wasn't right for you. So I scared him off, and I think everybody in the pub knew that Alfie was talking absolute rubbish, but Linda kind of appreciated it all the same. Yeah, I mean, this was like a bit of kind of fun, really. I didn't mind it. It's Alfie is kind of the question now is, when do Alfie and Linda get together? Because that's obviously next on the agenda. Because I think there's a little bit of a spark between them now. Oh God, yeah.
Well, because I see that you're right. There seemed to be a spark there, but Alfie seemed to be encouraging her and Mick to get together again. And I mean, we don't know what the outcome is going to be at Christmas between Linda and Mick. Whether Mick does die or whether, and whether Linda and Mick just go off in the sunset. I mean, he has now officially got engaged to Janine. He got on one knee.
So
because
romantic.
Oh well, yeah.
So romantic.
Off screen wasn't so much, but on screen it was kind of like, "Oh, you want to marry me then?" Yeah, all right then.
Yeah, I honestly,
for the purposes of Scarlet really, wasn't it? Because Scarlet wants to call him Daddy.
That was odd as well. Like, Scarlet just walking in and going, "I'd like to call you Dad," and Mick looked as bemused and nonplussed as we all were. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Michael, for goodness sake, like, for a start, apparently he proposed to her in the middle of a petrol station. And which Janine was absolutely fine with. Like, because Janine, I think, is at the stage now where she's clutching so madly at straws to kind of fulfill this fantasy in her head that Mick is the one and only for her, and that he feels the same way about her, when she knows full well that Mick would drop her at an instance if Linda kind of gave her any sort of sign or hint. So Mick sort of cements that by proposing upstairs in essentially his living room, like, just because Scarlet came in and said that about wanting to call him Daddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost feel sorry for Janine about how kind of sad this looks for her. Like, she just looks desperate at this point.
It does, doesn't it? From the outside, anyone kind of watching in kind of thinks that, like, this isn't true, is it? This isn't real. And even Mick's not convinced. Mick's not convinced really, because it all took us a little talk with Alfie to say,
if Alfie is the one, if Alfie is the one that sort of said, "You know you've got problems." Honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of sad just to see this non-eventful relationship. Like, you kind of wonder exactly what even goes on in the bedroom between the two of them. Like, yes, they might be able to kind of have the odd little rumpy-pumpy moment, but it's nothing like what. And Janine will go off into some mad realm of fantasy where she believes that I keep calling him Michael, where Mick is making kind of true passionate love to her, when she knows full well that isn't what's happening. And Mick is kind of just trying to do his best to maintain what he guesses is just a normal relationship, because Janine is the only other person that he's been in a relationship with apart from Linda. And the fact that Linda is still kind of hanging around the pub, it's all very sad. And I do feel, I know Janine is has been a vile person throughout this entire thing, but this kind of goes back to sort of Janine's character of just like wanting, all Janine ever wants is for someone to love her, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's basically her motive for a lot of what she does. So to kind of see her kind of just grasping at all of this, it just makes her look sad and desperate. So when she realizes this eventually, when she kind of becomes aware of what exactly she is doing and what she's being forced to do, that's when Janine's going to start getting dangerous around Christmas time, obviously, whenever Mick decides to play Die Hard. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Oh, that still confuses me, that whole that photo.
It's going to be
the next. You'll know what you'll. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, it's going to be the next DVD reveal, when everyone's kind of sat round, everyone's going to sat around
the Brannings, Stacey and Max.
This photograph's going to fall out, and the whole square will understand everything that's going on.
But I do get in a weird way that unless you know what you're looking at or what you're looking for, which clearly Scarlet and Janine did, it's very difficult to really distinguish what that photo means. And I do love a reveal like that, and I do love the fact that it's kind of been put in a DVD case and hasn't been mentioned since. You've not seen Scarlet kind of every now and then opening the drawer, looking over, and then closing the drawer again. I do like that there's that suspense.
Well, Scarlet knows it's there, isn't it? Yeah, but it's just like that. It's like that ticking time bomb thing, isn't it? We know it's there. We kind of have a feeling when it's going to go off. There's a little screen on this ticking time bomb that says 25, 12 to 22. We know when it's going to go off. But yeah, I can't wait for that all to go, because at the moment this storyline is sort of just kind of treading water at the moment until the big reveals start happening. So
it really is. It's kind of just trying to get to it, because really now the only way the story's got to get to is the point where we've seen the photos leaked and revealed. There's not really much more to it, is there? But it's funny that Janine what makes Janine Janine is the fact that she's desperately trying to get her own way, and everyone around her is basically aware of what Janine's like, but can't quite get out of it. And so Mick, you say, if Linda literally went up to Mick and said, "Let's get back together again," Mick would drop her in an instant. But Mick's kind of watching from afar and seeing Linda kind of being flirted with by Alfie, I suppose, and got very jealous at the idea of her having these dates. So
there is a lot to there's a lot to get out of this story though once the reveals start happening, because obviously Linda at some point is going to have to remember everything that happened during the car crash. She's going to have some epiphany where she remembers the fact that Janine was the one that was driving. This kind of closed off memory has been closed off all these months that she's going to have to remember at some point. There's the issue of the fact that Janine's pregnant. She's been made pregnant for a reason. I can't believe that it was just so that it was for us to believe that Mick would then instantly propose to her. But then at the same time, I'm still not entirely convinced that Janine is still pregnant, or that she's going to remain pregnant for very much longer, because she was talking this week about showing, I was kind of coming up to time, I'm going to start showing soon. Yeah, nothing to do with the fact that she's eating 25 donuts per day.
I was going to say 4 donuts in one morning. The one cheeky one.
Am I pregnant? That seems like a fairly normal thing to do, if you ask me. So yeah, there's all this kind of Scarlet's part in it. There's also another return coming, which we won't spoil in general discussion, but there's another big return sort of coming in the next few weeks. So how does that all kind of play into it? So there is a lot coming up with this storyline, and I'm sort of looking forward to the next stages of it, because at the minute it's sort of just Janine kind of just looking like some vamp and kind of just eating Mick's neck whenever she gets the opportunity just to show off to Linda, which is
all donuts.
But all donuts, either Mick's neck or a donut. Both produce red stuff.
One of the same thing in one way. You think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, there was also another facet to this story, which is that Kat has been encouraged by Jean to kind of take that love route down, and allow Alfie to look after her kids. So Kat's off on holiday, nice little break for Jessie Wallace, and Alfie's going to be looking after the kids. Alfie's going to be looking after the kids for a couple of weeks.
Taxi office. Is Kat an idiot? Honestly.
And the taxi office, I know.
She's a fool. She learns nothing. She's been on the show how long? She's been with Alfie how long? She's known Alfie how long? And she's going to leave him in charge of the one business that Kat's ever had in her life that's actually earning her some proper money. She's going to leave Alfie in charge of that. She's going to come back, the place will be burnt down, all the taxis will have flat tyres, there'll be 2 of them missing.
Well, no, knowing Alfie, he'll basically run the business in 2 weeks. He'll run the business into the ground, find himself in huge amounts of debt, and then start a fire just to kind of recoup the debt through insurance purposes. That'll be Alfie's storyline for the next.
And then Kat will come home early and just sort of sneak into the back as the whole building explodes. That's normally how it goes for those.
That's right. And then be scarred for life, but then scars will somehow disappear and then never be seen again.
Beauty took those scars away.
They did.
That's what happened.
They did. But So Alfie hasn't really. Alfie is a good father, let's be honest, to his kids. But he has he has his flaws, not all his own fault. Getting stuck on the Queen Vic roof wasn't really his fault, let's be honest with
It's
you.
got more flaws than the Empire State Building, Alex. Come on, let's...
But would you trust after everything that's happened up until this point, does it feel a bit like, that you would trust Alfie with your business and your children? Or their children?
Especially when you know that, he's made it perfect. He's not lied. He said he's made it perfectly clear. I'm going to get you back, Kat. And yes, they had that least conversation with let's be friends. If Kat believes that, then she's even more of a fool than I thought she was. So she knows full well what Alfie's real motives are. So I don't believe that Kat doesn't think that Alfie still doesn't kind of hold a huge, Olympic-sized flamed torch for her. So I don't know. We'll have to kind of wait and see where this goes. And at some point, Phil's coming back. That's side of the stories continue because Billy is currently walking around the square absolutely free, despite the fact that he's supposed to be currently on time for a murder charge. So I don't know when that story is going to continue either.
Well, we might find out who Phil phoned in his car before he left.
Who would it be?
So that mystery to maybe it's Bruce Willis to get his DVD back. Eh?
That'll be it.
That'll be the one. Can you imagine if Bruce Willis is the reveal? He gets his DVD, opens it up, and the photo falls. That'd be amazing. Anyway. But anything can happen. It is Walford after all. Anyway, from the sublime, we're now going to jump into the ridiculous with our next story. Right, so this next story, we've had a quick chat before we start recording, and I think we've got mixed views on this. I hated it a lot because it didn't have purpose or place in my mind.
No.
It kind of ended well with the Zack and Sam sleeping together. They're they on and off. Don't they don't know if they want a relationship just yet. Zack's not sure because of Nancy and that breakup, but Sam's more keen. And there's also that kind of undertone of Chelsea and Whitney. I don't quite know why they're getting involved, but they're getting involved now. But it started with Sam's ex coming to the square. His name was Don. And he was throwing baseball bats along kitchen tables. He was threatening to kill people. But at the same time, he got a Spanish band, a Mexican band, and tried to kind of entice Sam back into his life. And it just felt staggeringly out of place in the current EastEnders for me right now. Because EastEnders has been so good. Yes, it's been camp at times with EastEnders, especially this week with Dr. Nina. Campness on 11. However, this didn't feel deserved in my mind. It was fine, but it didn't feel right. I don't know. But tell me I'm wrong. Go on. Well, the thing is, he reminded me of Stuart in a lot of ways, this guy. Yeah.
Everything that he did, literally everything that he did. If Stuart had done any of that, I wouldn't have blinked,
No.
So maybe that's why it felt a little bit more forgivable for me, because I was sort of just it didn't feel like a completely out of left-wing thing that EastEnders would do, because we've just lost a character where that would have just been second nature. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why I kind of accepted it. I didn't mind. I thought it was quite funny. I did. I don't know why. Maybe I was just in a good mood when I was watching all the stuff. When he turned around to Sam, when she was lying about being pregnant, and said, "Well, wait till you've healed up, and then we'll be fine." I absolutely screamed. I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was a great line. I don't know why. Do you know what it is? I follow the writers a lot more than you do. A guy called Johnny O'Neill, who wrote the wedding episode, where that double wedding episode when Alfie returned, there was one liner after one liner after one liner. He wrote those episodes, and it's very recognisably sort of a lot of Johnny O'Neill type humour and one-liners were coming in the script. So it was quite a comedy thing. It was quite insane. It was quite ridiculous. And you sort of look at Sam and just think, really, you went here? Looking at what you've got now, this is where you are. You were a weird gangster bloke who likes to dress up as a musketeer, and calling her Marilyn for the entire week because apparently Sam reminds him of Marilyn Monroe. It was silly, yes, but I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was harmless fluff. And frankly, by the end of the week, when Zack, for no reason whatsoever, took his shirt off,
screamed and said, "Come on, then!"
I was sold. I was sold by that point. I don't know what happened to the rest of the scene because I wasn't paying attention to the dialogue, but. Were there other words said? I didn't hear. As soon as the button started coming undone, they could have been talking Latin for all I cared.
It was just such a peculiar thing for Zack, because Zack's always been kind of like a soft. I know he can bring out a hard side. Like you saw it with Phil, where he said, "I don't go to the gym just to look good. I go there because I can fight." And that was pretty. That was clever. It was just the fact that he talked about his dad, Gavin, and how he had to kind of fight his way to his affections and so on, and that was fine. That was good. I like that bit of background, a bit more story about him and Gavin, between them. And they just, kind of topped it off with his shirt coming off and shouting "Come on, then" at the top of his voice.
Right.
It just kind of felt lost at that point. I was like, "What's going on?" Like I just sat there, kind of like. But I appreciated he had no shirt on. That's fine. But
that's absolutely fine. He should do that a lot more. I just, I quite like the fact that Don, after that, as soon as he took his shirt off and oh yeah, you're probably right. You'll probably win this fight. Right, take care of her. Yeah, right. I'll see you later. Bye. And just left.
I don't know. I think Don could have held his own. I just think that the realization kind of hit him that it was a bit like. Well, Sam's told me all these reasons why we shouldn't be together, so I might as well just give up now. Like he just something better in the horizon. I don't know. I didn't really pay much attention to it. I just kind of like.
I didn't mind it. This is the thing. EastEnders always comes under criticism when it goes into slightly zany territory like this. I'm reminded of the pizza man, the pizza delivery man. Of course,
I love the pizza man. This is where
now. How do you dare
turn
around to me and say this was rubbish when you say you liked the pizza guy?
We were so desperate for anything just to kind of keep us entertained at that point. I think the pizza guy just kind of turned it up for us, so it was fine. Well, now with them, there was so much. Like it felt like it was wasted. I wanted more, like Lola stuff. You could have fit in a few more Lola scenes there instead. Like I don't think you need. And also, I was a bit confused, and perhaps I'm remembering the past wrong here. Comment below if I am, or get in touch with us at Walford Weekly on Twitter, Instagram, all their socials. Wasn't Sam, when she returned to the square, wasn't there that scene when like all of her belongings were returned because there was that painting of her that was naked and Shrimpy was like taking photographs with it? It was camera.
Yes.
So that would have been Don, surely. So what between then, where Don kind of got peed off with Sam and threw her out and didn't want anything to do with her, then suddenly, other than the convenience of this plot, other than that, and also it kind of. Well, sorry, go on.
No, it wasn't. Considering what type of person Sam is, I can't imagine. I can fully believe that Don wasn't her only ex while she was away.
So there's more than one. So she was stringing them all along.
It's Sam.
In Spain.
It's Sam, for goodness sake. Of course it bloody was. I didn't.
For everyone.
Yes, that sounds like Sam, doesn't it? I didn't mind it. It was all right. I could take it. I wouldn't be surprised if Don makes a return, to be honest, because I just thought that it was a lot to throw at a guest character. It was a lot of personality for someone that was only essentially in 2 episodes. So I kind of felt that it was something that we might be seeing more of in the future.
I would be a bit peed off if I was Ricky Champ and I was watching EastEnders and I saw this character called Don.
It's me.
Which makes me think, like, what happened there? What happened that
who knows?
They're bringing back Rick? They're bringing back Stuart 2.0.
Stuart, but in a different character.
I know. It's weird, mad.
Meanwhile, what we also have going on with Zack is. Like, obviously, like, Chelsea and Whitney have sort of kind of started floating around kind of Zack's story zone, if you like.
Orbiting him, aren't they?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I have a feeling that Whitney and Zack are going to start being a thing soon, because Whitney has developed this habit. We noticed this when she did it with Finley a couple of weeks ago. I know, right? We noticed this when she was looking at Finley the other day and was kind of chewing a straw out of sexual frustration. And now, this week, she was looking at Zack and was nagging on her nail. And like, so clearly, whenever Whitney's horny, this is a character trait that's been developed, that Whitney needs to chew something whenever she wants to have sex with it, essentially. So
also, you got to feel for Whitney, because she is living next to a guy who apparently has a rotating door to his bedroom for every woman who comes in and out. So, she's probably just sat there listening in those very thin walls at number 1.
Chewing on a pillow.
Yeah.
Like a beaver. There's teeth marks all over Whitney's wall.
Poor Whitney. She did actually say this week that it was quite funny. She said, like, every man she's ever dated has either been a psycho or, like, all the problems that every single man she's ever had. So I did feel for Whitney, I must say.
I'd be celibate if I was Whitney, wouldn't you? I wouldn't chew anything.
I worry that, like, perhaps, like, but would it be Whitney that gets together with Zack? Would it be Chelsea that gets together with Zack? Because that's another thing. Well,
where does Finley fit into it? Because otherwise, what's the point?
Where does Finley fit in?
Where would Finley fit into this?
The brothers that seem to have nothing. The one story they had to cling on to, and they've lost that.
Yes, indeed. Much more to come, I think, with those two. But I'm confused as to why Zack's. I mean, like, it's not like we haven't kind of like raised our eyebrow at Zack and Chelsea before, because that seemed like quite a natural thing to happen. Because the two of them got on very well. There's a natural flirtation between them. Zack is 1,000,000,000% Chelsea's type, and probably vice versa as well. So I don't know. There's some. At some point I can see a love triangle coming on the horizon involving Whitney and Chelsea, but who the man is, I do not know. Maybe it might be a love square. I mean,
Well, it'd be like
Pentagon.
Pentagon, yeah.
Yeah.
Finley,
Or an octagon.
Chelsea, Whitney,
Or a
Sam,
nonagon.
Nonagon. That's 10 sides.
I
learned that.
love nonagon. It's not,
A
it's
nonagon.
9, isn't it? It's
What was
9.
it? What was it on I'm a Celebrity? That was a question, wasn't it? How
Yeah,
many
exactly.
sides?
That's where I learned
Oh,
the
no,
word.
I got that right because
go.
I knew how many signs of the zodiac there were.
Well, you did get it right because you told me they had 10 anyway.
Signs of the zodiac is 12, and it was the most.
Yes, it
Why are we
is.
talking about I'm a Celebrity? This is not an I'm a
You brought
Celebrity
it up.
podcast.
No, it's not.
I did.
Otherwise, we'd be talking about Matt Hancock a hell of a lot more if it was. I'll tell you that for nothing. I was on the radio, by the way. I told you this. I was on the radio. BBC Three Counties, and I for some strange reason they plugged the podcast, and all I did was reply to a tweet and a delete. What do you think about Matt Hancock? And I replied to a tweet, and they got in touch with me. I've no idea how they got my phone number, and rang me and asked me to be an interview, and then looked at my Twitter handle and said, "Oh, we'll mention the podcast." All right, then fine. Thank you very much. And there we go.
They probably got you because the BBC database.
Yes, I am on the BBC database.
We're both on there, mate.
Yes.
but yes. Anyway. I think. Yes. I mean, other than if Matt Hancock comes onto the square, can you imagine if Matt Hancock comes to the square?
It seems the natural next step, surely.
Surely, yeah.
Walford's new MP, Matt Hancock.
Yeah, who never turned up. And
Whitney sat there in the corner, like chewing on a ballot paper.
To be fair, I'd like Whitney to get together with Matt Hancock. It might be his final demise. Anyway, so there you go. So
here we are.
I think we've summed up that story. The fact we've gone off tangent means that we finished there. Anyway, we've got a big fish to fry now. Exactly, we've got the big
shark
story.
It's a whale to fry.
Exciting times, sad times, indifferent times. Everything.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm coping with my loss here because we've lost a Panesar. Really strange. We'll talk about it in detail in a second, but really strange to lose such a main character when the story, is really ramping up with that family at the moment, the Panesar family. Really mad. But it kind of makes sense why Ravi's been introduced. I think it's the rotating door, one in, one out maybe situation. Maybe.
Get it. I don't get it. We'll get onto it. So obviously this week was a huge week for the Panesars again. You know, not that we're complaining, but you know, because the EastEnders is basically kind of like put them first and foremost and central in front of a lot of weeks of this week because they're such a huge unit. It seems like one or two of them can kind of have a week off, and the rest of the Panesars just carry the story on. So it's been like quite a big week this week, except for me, and we differ on this. I thought this week it felt like everything went by at the speed of Sen. You know, no,
I agree with you there. It's like a lot of reveals, a lot of secrets were exposed this week, which I would thought that would take months before they'd reveal them, and they've just kind of almost like a child vomiting after eating too many sweets, to just come out all at once. It's just. So I was really surprised all that had happened. The only thing I can think for why that's happened is because of Kheerat's exit this week, which was really unexpected, really surprising.
But it's unexpected to the point where we didn't even realise it was an exit. Like you kind of like just it's sort because obviously Kheerat has now decided, right, okay, so to save my mum, I'm going to confess to Ranveer's murder. And because it's Walford police, they've gone, yep, that'll do. Yep,
they'll accept it.
That's another one scratched off the list. Let's be honest here, rubbish. Like, Walford police are so rubbish at their job. It's insane. Like,
even with a new detective, they still can't work things out.
Obviously, it's been a while since we've had to really deal with Walford police's incompetence. You know, since Gray left, they haven't really had too much to do. And obviously, the only other policeman we've seen is Keeble, who's got her own kind of things going on. But this week really demonstrated the fact that Walford police should just not be allowed to exist. So Scotland Yard should step in at this point, because Kheerat has gone confessed to Ranveer's murder, and the police all turn up on the Walford Square with all the sirens going, as though they were literally just kind of as though they were expecting him to run away, and he's literally just standing there in the square. You know, I'm here. Right, we'll turn the sirens off then. Fair enough. And arrested him, took him away, and you kind of just think, okay, right, yeah, that makes sense for a story point. So I wonder what will happen with Kheerat next week. What's he going to tell the police? No, that's it. He's gone.
Okay,
that's his exit. He's gone, apparently. It's been confirmed by all of the social media accounts that Jazz has actually left the role, and he's gone, and they wish him all the best. What?
Good luck. See you soon. I mean, I don't think this is the final goodbye.
No,
I do believe he will be back. No, I believe he will be back.
This might be a fake
point.
out. I think this might be a fake out.
Really? I think I've been toying with that as an idea, but I'm convinced that it's not, because because it seems too convincing the reasons why he's decided to leave. And one of them is that he's obviously got the property business and he kind of wants to kind of expand and build that up. This is Jazz's real life, not
I didn't
life
know
on
this.
the square. So I think he's planning to kind of like try to expand that a little bit.
I don't stalk him like you do. I don't know.
I've got posters on my wall and everything. So I think that this is a genuine exit, but I don't think it's a genuine forever exit. I don't think we're not going to see Kheerat back. Maybe a year or maybe a couple of years, because it's too important for him to stay in it.
Oh, what a strange time for him to like just go. Like Kheerat is like a key component in the storyline at the moment, and he's just gone. And it feels like there was a lot of unfinished stuff there. Like it feels like all the sort of building up of Nish and Ravi sort of plotting to bring Kheerat down. They didn't do anything really. Kheerat just kind of did this himself.
And
the most Nish did was sort of just hold Suki back from stopping her from kind of chasing after the police car. And that was about it. So it feels like, at the very most, I feel like this is just a break for the character. I know that they're doing like all the we wish Jazz all the best in his future. Thank you very much. He's been playing the role since 2019. I know they've done all that, but it feels, because it felt so jarring for that to be the exit. The fact that we needed to be told that was his exit.
Yeah,
like it should be fairly obvious when a character is leaving. You know, like and Stacey kind of did all her crying. I thought Lacey turned and played a blinder this week actually with all this. Same. But then when doesn't she? But you know, she clearly has no plans to go and visit him in prison or anything like that. No plans whatsoever. She's like, no, that's him. He's gone.
I mean, Stacey does have a history of like getting boyfriends and then never seeing their boyfriends again. To be fair, let's never forget the boyfriend she had at the school gates that we never saw again.
never saw him again.
But I mean, to be fair, the fact that I didn't know he was leaving.
Yeah,
and then it was announced he was leaving. I quite liked that because I like being surprised. Yes, it was a bit of a kind of like a gut wrenching surprise. It was a bit like wow, and a real.
Then he just stopped crying.
I know. I've only just stopped. You know, my eyes are just welling, thinking about his departure. But still, it's.
I thought you were going to say that.
But I thought personally that the way he left was. Okay, good. I liked it. I liked that he spoke to Ash and Vinny one last time and told them not to trust Ravi. I liked that he had that conversation with Suki, and they had those scenes earlier in the week where they said they missed having this relationship that they've not had for such a long time. I liked that he took to Eve and told Eve to look after Suki and take care of her. So he was making sure everything was in place for his departure. So it made sense, and I liked that. I really don't like the character leaving because that doesn't make sense in the kind of grand scheme of the story. That really, with the Panesars, having Kheerat there made sense. Kind of all the different plots and all the different people, kind of all the different parts of the story to happen. But so I'm kind of torn between I liked his exit, but I don't think in the long term it makes a lot of sense. But then that's not really the programme's fault if the actor wanted to leave. So I'm very torn.
Know, but...
Plus, personally, he's a very good-looking lad, and I would like to take him home for a coffee one night.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm on the database. I'm on the BBC database, not any other database.
You should be on another database. We both should. Poor EastEnders actors worried about us perving over them every single week. It's disgusting. Shallow podcast, very shallow podcast. I don't know. And obviously, of course, it wasn't just Kheerat that seemingly left this week. Nina's gone as well, apparently. Because Nina, now...
I love Dr. Nina's
again
this week.
I know. Nina went flying up in my estimation this week because it was just all so camp and ridiculous. It was
like Dallas. It was like an 80s soap opera in America. Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Loved it.
She could have been played by Joan Collins this week, that Nina. It was marvellous.
It's like those Snickers adverts where it's like, they're hungry and they haven't had... So it's like Nina took a bite of a Snickers bar and became Joan Collins. It was just fantastic.
Marvellous. And there was a great little fight between her and Ash. It was so camp. The whole thing was so camp.
Rob, bitches don't slap. Panesar's punch.
Panesar's punch.
God, I loved that line. Oh,
slapped her for no reason whatsoever. It was just all marvellous. Do you reckon that is the last we've seen of Nina? Because it seems that Nina has just gone off to sort of. It reminded me a little bit of how Susie Branning left. Do you remember all those years ago when Max's sister? She kind of just got drunk and sort of insulted everybody around the table, and then just left, and then just sent a postcard about 2 months later. Just any remaining insults that she'd thought of on the plane. So, do you think this is like Nina's gone, or are we going to see Nina again? This is what I mean. It all sorts of feels like there was so much going on, and then it sort of feels like they've just sort of, it's like a Jenga tower. They've sort of just removed like quite vital sort of parts of the tower at this point. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I get what you're saying. Yeah, because the Nina elements seem to have disappeared. The Ravi being the son of Nish element has kind of disappeared. Ravi obviously admitted that he kind of lied in his statement. Yeah, sorry. So another block, I mean, from your Jenga tower.
Yeah,
that Ravi admitting that he lied to the police so that Suki would be arrested for it, then objectively told the family that he had done that because he then realized that family was more important than what he was doing with Dr. Nina, the countless doctor in the world. It's just mad. The USB stick now being revealed, and Nish has hold of it. So Nish now has a USB stick, and he was watching it as well. Kind of, what was he planning with that? Because Suki was having the bath upstairs, and he was watching the video. What was he? Was he going to get his Photoshop skills out and like replace Suki's head with his own? I don't know. What was the plan?
I mean, I'm not being funny. Nish doesn't even know how to use a chip and pin machine. So I would worry about, I would worry about how good he's going to be on a computer.
He's very competent on that laptop very quickly. That's a toy.
He learned his thing, learned his craft.
He'd been to an Apple store. Just did one of their training teachers.
One evening that Vinny sort of taught him a few tricks on how to use a MacBook. I mean, this is what I mean. There's so much going on that they've sort of just kind of halted before it felt ready to be halted. I don't know. It's odd. So what happens from here then? If we're to accept now that Nina's gone and Kheerat's gone, this essentially means now that we're left with Nish, Ash and Vinny and Suki, and Nish presumably is now going to just and Ravi, and Nish is presumably now just going to sort of envelope his tentacles around the family, and Ravi's going to kind of come into place as well and join that family. So what happened? Nina sort of dropped before she left that Ravi was the one that killed Ranveer, but I don't think anybody. I'm not sure whether they believed her or not. And then Ravi was looking, and then Nish was looking at the laptop. But we know that Ravi removed the footage of him killing Ranveer, so it is just him. It is just Suki and him attacking Suki. So I don't know what happens next. I'm really confused by it all.
And poor old Vinny is still tortured. Like Vinny's hair is getting more and more slick every. It's like every morning he just puts some Vaseline and just rubbed it in his head. It's like,
covers his head with real cream. I have no idea what's going on. I'm so confused.
Poor tortured Vinny. Last week
poor
was
Vinny.
Tip of the iceberg, wasn't it, from tortured Vinny?
Bless him.
But we also must remember that Nugget is part of the equation too, because Ravi wants him to be part of the family as well. That his whole purpose of doing this by killing Ranveer and running away with Nina was that he wanted this happy family with Dr. Nina, him and Nugget, and now he's been given a better family, I suppose, in his mind, hence why he's been more open and honest with Nish and Suki. But it's like you say, all the elements of the story have just all kind of been exposed all at once in one big explosion. Yeah. And it's like, where do we go from here? What more can happen?
It kind of, I think, is it because we sort of had ourselves all sort of kind of G'd up for this to be a really long runner, and for this to kind of, because we were talking about like how this could go on to the 40th. This is going to be this is all going to go on for another 2 years, and Nish is going to be killed off in the big whodunit. And we were kind of, I think maybe we trained ourselves into thinking that, so that when a load of big reveals, sort of the key reveals of the storyline were revealed this week, it was sort of just like, oh wait, what happens now then? What was it? So I don't know. Obviously, as we always say, I guess we'll see what happens next. But I was kind of just. I think I just felt like I had the rug pulled out from under me this week from what I was expecting the story to do, but not necessarily in the way that I like, because it's sort of I felt a bit shortchanged in some areas, you know.
I mean, there's still development and growth there. I mean, as we said, Nish looking at the video on the laptop, you know, seeing the videos, seeing only the part that Ravi had edited. I suppose that's something. So perhaps the other part will be found. The police, the laptop was mentioned, wasn't it? Ravi's laptop was mentioned, and Ravi was very worried because he thought that, again, Nish, he knew that, even though you delete something from your computer, it's still there on the hard drive, roaming around somewhere. He's learned that technology very quickly.
That was an in-depth lesson he had with Vinny. Vinny has taught him a huge amount.
It wasn't
Nish
just
taught him
about
Nish taught him how to do his hair, and Vinny taught him how to work on a laptop.
Yeah, father and son bond.
Yeah, there you go.
So presumably that it's going to be. They wouldn't have mentioned that laptop if there wasn't going to be somehow that they're going to find the other part of that video. That's what I was thinking. So I think Nish is under the impression right now that he thinks that his wife had killed. Because there's also that manipulation. There's more. There is more to this, I suppose. There's that manipulation this week that you saw between husband and wife, where Nish was kind of like being a bit coercive towards Suki. Kind of gently giving her ideas of what to do next. And even simple little things like, you should go and have a shower. We should go away to Cornwall and spend a weekend away in Cornwall. She's like, no, I can't do it. Yes, we're going to go to Cornwall. And then she was like, okay, I'm convinced. Let's do it. So there's that kind of coerciveness between them now that's kind of showing it. It was always there, but it's now kind of showing itself more and more. So I mean, there's a lot more with the Panesar stuff.
Yeah, of course. But it seems like it seems like a huge amount of meat has been removed from the story in this week with all the reveals that have kind of gone on, and over the past fortnight, the Rav reveal kind of happened last week, and I was even surprised that happened when it did happen. And obviously everything that's kind of gone on this week, I think your analogy of a kid throwing up because you're so high on E numbers, that kind of applied this week. So I don't know. We'll kind of see what happens. I kind of feel that in the next couple of weeks, the Panesars are kind of calm down a little bit, because I think obviously the Mick and Janine stuff is going to be the big stuff going into Christmas. So maybe the Panesars will sort of calm down a little bit before we go into the new year, and they'll start blowing up again. I mean, the Nish and Suki relationship is interesting because the two actors have great chemistry on screen. There was obviously the whole Suki and Eve thing. Now Kheerat's gone. Stacey is now the only person that kind of knows that that's going on, apart from Suki and Eve. So that's interesting. That's still to be revealed.
Imagine if Suki didn't know.
I know, right?
What's happened? Where?
What have I been doing? What are you doing in my bed? Get out immediately. Who are you?
You smell familiar.
Temptation of Eve. So, I mean, obviously that's all still to be revealed. And like you say, the coercive control element of Nish, because in many ways he does remind me of Archie in a lot of ways. There is that element to him quite clearly. I think that he's sort of this older evil guy. The family is sort of, even the way that Ash and Vinny are with him sort of reminds me of how Roxy was with Archie in the early days as well.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of elements to it that are still there to be played with, absolutely. But it feels like the big load of story that we had kind of pushing all of them as a unit forward have sort of, like, they've had a couple of engines removed. So I'm intrigued to see where it goes from here and whether it can still kind of keep its head above water, because it was great, everything that was going on. So I hope that it still stays as strong as it will do going forward. I hope it will, and I think it will, but it's sort of, rug pulled out from under me this week, I think. So there we are.
Do you think that Kheerat's advice to Ash and Vinny this week will go on deaf ears? Do you think that they won't be, because he's kind of warned everyone to be very aware of Nish now, to kind of watch out, even Suki, but I don't think Suki needed warning, but he's kind of told everyone just to be aware. Everyone but Ravi's the only one who's kind of stayed, still kind of, because he's still seen as kind of the outsider of the group. So do you think that people will heed that advice and be more aware, or do you think Nish will now, because Kheerat's out of the picture, be able to kind of manipulate his way like he did when he first kind of came to the square?
Well, I don't think Vinny has bought it at all. I think because Vinny is so sort of anguished about the whole situation, I think Vinny is still sort of, and now because of everything that happened with Ash and Nina in the surgery, I don't think Ash is going to be that convinced either, because obviously it was all revealed, again with all the reveals this week, it was revealed that Nina and Ravi had been having this affair. So obviously all of them are going to kind of be looking at Ravi and thinking, well, you've been lying from the second that we met you. Obviously the fact that you're our brother, you knew about that, so I think there is going to be a huge level of distrust there. Kheerat saying that to them is, again, something I think that will play on their minds. What I did love this week was the last moment between Suki and Kheerat, which again is something why I didn't think it was an exit, because there was just a really nice bit of, I thought that was a character development as opposed to sort of character leaving. Where Suki essentially said, well, no, you are my favourite child. So poor Suki being left with all these rubbish kids that she doesn't like as much. I know, bless her. Well, my question, I don't want nothing to do with the fact that Kheerat going to prison, but she just didn't want to be left with it with Vinny and Ash, who
Vinny
were
and Ash.
no, she wasn't didn't like them as much.
No.
It's just all it's all very odd. So I think the big thing now will be Vinny and Ash maybe stepping up to the plate now as sort of main cogs in the storyline, because the pair of them have sort of just been not in the background, but they've been the quieter parts of the story, really, haven't they? So I wonder if now it's the time for Vinny and Ash to kind of step forward and sort of play a bigger role in the story, which will be good, because I think Nish has got both of them fooled. Nish isn't the problem for them; it's going to be Ravi. So
yeah, but you say that, but like you say, the Kheerat kind of gave them that advice. At first, Ash and Vinny did follow them, but now I think Vinny's the most wayward, because Vinny's not convinced about Ravi. He's quite angry about this man being introduced to family, and he's really angry at the fact that they're lying to the police in order to get. I think he thinks Ravi off for the crime, but and so now Kheerat has now stepped forward. I think he's going to be super, upset and broody about it. And
his hair next week.
His hair is going to be awful.
Bless him.
It's going to be a right.
Plus, we got the Addams family, like just covered in his entire. It's going to be like Sia.
yeah, and yeah. Well, I'm trying to think what's the character from The Ring when he comes out the well. That's going to be our Vinny, and it's going
to crawl out of a mobile phone screen.
Yeah, very modern. And so I feel like Ash and Vinny aren't going to be swayed by him, but I don't know. It's mad, isn't it? This is what I mean. It's like there's so many facets still there to play with.
Yeah,
I just don't know how they're going to. I think you're right. I think they're going to slow it down. It's going to be the Panesars have been very involved in the plots right now, but I think it's now going to take a bit of a back step, especially with Mick's character, Mick's story, his exit, his must be coming from the center, and Lola as well. I mean, but again, it's trying to work out. It's like one of those puzzles with the string, it's kind of detective work. Who's going where and what's going to end where? I still think I'm still confident the Panesars are going to be this very long-term story. It's just
as a whole they will be. Yeah, as a whole I think they will be. And over the next month or so, I'm now starting to wonder if Lola's going to die something like New Year's Day or something like that. There's just the way that's kind of going. It sort of feels like they could just slot in Lola's death sort of fairly soonish, the way that they've sort of framed it. And obviously Mick and Janine are going to be the big Christmas story. So I think the Panesars now, this might be sort of the start of the. I think they might tie up a few sort of bits and pieces next week, and then sort of pause the Panesars for a bit and sort of let everybody else sort of because they have been very sort of front and central for like about the past month or so, haven't they? Like every week it's been really Panesar heavy, which is fine because we like them, but obviously all characters need a break at some point. So we will see what happens. But that was this week's EastEnders, and what a week it was! Busy old week, shocking week, surprising week. That's what we like. Do let us know in the comments section below what your thoughts on the stories were this week. We love to hear your thoughts, and we're about to hear even more thoughts in the forms of questions in emails in I Ain't Want to Gossip.
You know me, I ain't want to gossip.
Thank you, as always, for getting in touch with us. Rob will give you all the details of how you can get in touch with us at the end of the show. But suffice to say, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or emailing us with all the details that are also scrolling on the bottom of the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. Right, Rob, a couple of emails. I am going to start off with one from Jack. And it reads, "Hi, Alex and Rob. I started watching the podcast after Grey's final week, and I needed to hear someone talk about it or complain. I'm not sure which I want, to be honest."
What a way to join us.
I know. And you didn't disappoint. I enjoy reaching the end of an Enders week to get more discussion off of it on a Saturday or a Sunday. Since I started to listen to the podcast and heard your discussions about LGBTQ plus representation, which have been really interesting, and it really made me think about the representation of disability, not only in EastEnders, but the industry as a whole, which is important to me as a disabled actor/writer who is in a wheelchair. I am someone with cerebral palsy who cannot walk and have a couple of other physical problems to do with a disability from birth. Ever since I was young, I have rarely seen anyone on TV reminds me of me. Any disability representation is great, but I think the industry gets very focused on there being very specific ways of showing disability on screen. And if anyone is shown to be disabled, it comes across as quite depressing life. When yes, it is tough life at times, but it's not the constant, relentless, soul-crushing life that is shown. As most other full-time disabled wheelchair-based characters have not been very nice people or moaning about the situation that exists, but there are many who are happy in a wheelchair and live their life their own way. And EastEnders, in this case, hasn't shown that. And that's from Jack. Basically, yeah, just discussing how do you feel about like their kind of representation of disability?
I mean, yeah, it's not something that EastEnders has really covered all that heavily, is it? I love Donna. I thought Donna was a great. I thought Donna was a great character. Now I know Jack says in his email there about them not being very nice people, but what I loved about Donna was the fact that she was unshamedly and unapologetically herself, and she was one of these people that actually one of those characters where you think, I wouldn't mess with Donna. Well, I would not mess with Donna, and Donna would beat me in a fight quite easily. So I liked Donna, and I thought Donna was a great example of that as well, like somebody who would literally just go through life, and her disability actually meant very little in terms of what she felt she could do in her life. I thought that was great. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's not something that EastEnders has covered that well. I know Hollyoaks have got a much better track record for disability storylines. I mean, was there anybody in like the sort of the annals of EastEnders history that kind of falls into that category at all? Do you think?
I mean, there was one wheelchair character that kind of jumps out, and Jack did mention it on his email. It's just I shortened the email a little bit. I'm sure Jack understands. And that was a character called Adam Best. He was the son of Manda Best, who was played by Josie Lawrence, who was dating Minty. And Adam Best was Libby's boyfriend. And he was a wheelchair character. But that kind of refers also, because he ended up being quite an evil character. He cheated on Libby. He kind of he took Libby away from her then boyfriend as well. But he also was quite manipulative with Lucy Bill as well, because he kind of knew a secret with her. So he was never seen as and he was kind of pushed out of the square because of basically everything he had done. So, I mean, the thing is with soap is, and we talk about this all the time, is that obviously characters need to have some kind of character. They need to have some kind of like flaws and kind of, so forth. But should you shy away from them being kind of like an evil or not very good character just because of their disability? Should you kind of like paint them as kind of like, this brush where is it like we talk about LGBTQ plus characters, showing them in a very positive light, like they have, or they have done in the past, we've had complaints about that.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting because I remember when we were talking about sort of LGBT plus, and we were excited initially by Lewis when he first came in.
Yeah,
there seemed to be quite a lot of sort of undercurrents to him that sort of made him potentially a villain in terms of like you kind of felt that he was going to come in and try and break up Ben and Callum, and I was quite looking forward to that, and it's not something that kind of comes along all that often. So again, with disability, with disabled people. It's nice. It's good. I think this is why I love the Donna so much as a character, because she was just she could be a gobby cow, and she was so unapologetically herself. A disabled villain, I don't know. I mean, I feel unqualified to sort of say what I would want out of the disabled character. I like it when basically I think that anything that's a sort of I apologise if this isn't the right term. But a sort of able-bodied person's personality traits should completely be applied to a disabled character as well. That's how it should be. You shouldn't just kind of say, well, a disabled person has to act like this. And I think we'll be on that as well. But yeah, in short, I think that's something maybe EastEnders should be looking into in the future. Sort of bringing in a new disabled character and sort of educating, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day as well, isn't it? Education and understanding. So yeah, I totally agree. I think we should definitely have a disabled character come along very soon. I mean,
in recent times we've had Frankie, and she was brought in initially for Ben's storyline. I mean, there's a debate there. I mean, you can argue again. There's a debate there whether Ben's temporary deafness or his hearing loss was or has been or continues to be handled well. His something miraculous when he had the operation on his ear.
The operation, didn't they?
But then a lot of people said that like it takes years for you then to develop, being able to use your hearing loop and at the same time kind of, and even Rose, who played Frankie, kind of commented after she left the show that like there was times when the writing was where she was a bit like, well, I'm not even looking at the character, but I'm able to hear or understand what they're saying. That was brought up as well. So, I think it's one of those things where, if writing for a character is for a disabled character is going to take place, do you need a writer who is in a similar situation to be kind of
I
writing
feel
or
like you do.
ghost writing it alongside
I kind of feel like you do, yeah. Of course you do, because it's, yes, you can talk to people. I mean, obviously that's where research comes in. But you need someone who can actually experience the day-to-day life, who has experience of the day-to-day life of what it's like to be in that position, to actually kind of put across exactly what it's like to the viewers. Of course you do. And just like I would expect, gay writers to be able to be slightly better at, telling sort of the day-to-day life of a gay person as opposed to, a 60-year-old straight guy. Like, it's...
yeah.
I totally agree, Jack. Good email. Hopefully, let us know in the comment section below what your thoughts on that are, and let us know if anybody, because I know a few of our listeners watch other soaps from around the world. So do let us know if anywhere else has got great representation like that.
As I say, the second email came in this week as well from Robert, who has written, "Hello team." Yes, another team. Robert. Might be too late this week, though. A simple question. Would you rather not have known the outcome for poor Lola? I'm not the biggest fan of spoilers myself, though. Don't mind the odd one here and there, and would always edge to not want to know. Not your fault, as Danielle Harold pushed to do the PR on it, so you can't miss it. That said, one could ask the same question months down the line as an act of reflection. I may ask again if cool, but even so, best we Robert. So basically, Robert's asking, spoilers, good or bad things? I mean, no. I mean, they're kind of leaning away from spoilers recently. We've noticed
they are. Yeah, hence this week we're like, what? What? I mean, the thing is, with something like that, it's a bit different, I think, in this case, because I think you need to sort of make people aware that we're doing this, by the way, just so you're aware, we're doing this story, okay? So if you've been affected by this might be tricky for you. It's why I was so surprised that the Amy self-harm storyline seemed to come out of nowhere as well, because normally they tend to kind of give you, I think trigger warnings is the term they use for it these days, isn't it? And they've done it many a time. Like I remember with Chantel dying, they made it very clear that that's the direction the storyline was going in, because it can be triggering to people that have been in that position. So stuff like that, I think they do sort of need to keep on top of. And in terms of should we have known? The thing is, I've got friends who watch EastEnders and kind of like, I didn't want to know that. Why would I want to know that? And it's kind of just like, yeah, but it's not about you, is it? Really? Like, your enjoyment of this isn't going to be that spoiled just because you now know which direction the story's going in when it's something like this. You've got to think of other people with stuff like this. I'm lucky enough not to have been affected by that, touch wood. But lots of people have been. It's a very common story. So you need to sort of make people who have been in that position aware that it's being covered in a show that they watch.
Yeah. I mean, with the Amy story, for instance, because none of us knew that's where the story was heading, there was, at the beginning, the continuity announcer did say there may be scenes ahead that some viewers might find distressing. And we're all a bit like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? I mean, I don't mind spoilers, to be honest. I do like to be surprised, though. I do love the odd every now and then. I like to gasp every now and then. I like to fall on my bum off the seat every now and then. I like to... there's moments where I do like it. But you're right. There's also times when you have to be sensitive about people's feelings. It could trigger a lot of emotions, a lot of memories for a lot of people. It's finding what's the right thing to make surprising and what's not the right thing to make surprising. Which is like you. I was very surprised that they made Amy's story a surprise, something that wasn't publicly broadcast or known, other than perhaps the press who knew behind the scenes, because as soon as that story came out at the end of the episode, Metro was out, the Sun was out, everyone, the press all started releasing stories about it, so they knew it was coming. I mean, I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think you can always kind of get away with one or the other.
But do throw us your thoughts about that in the comment section below. And you can give us your thoughts and questions and opinions at any time you like during the week. And you can do it by doing the following. You can contact us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe and click the bell to get notifications about our spoiler videos. And you can email us on robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. Thank you very much, Alex. Same time next week, shall we?
Why not, eh?
Yeah, let's do it. Until then, lovely viewers and listeners, we love you lots. Mwah. And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from myself. Have a lovely week to you all. Take care.
Bye.